Hello and welcome to the Boss It podcast. Today we've got somebody that I've been wanting to bring on for some time. I've actually known about him a lot longer than he's known about me. I've seen quotes, I've seen articles, I've listened to him on doing podcasts, I've seen him do talks, I've read his books. He's written many books, Bad Men. I've just finished this one, Advertising and Skeptics. He's bringing out another book soon. I know you're going to enjoy listening to him. His name is Bob Hoffman. Bob, thanks for coming on Boss It. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Mark. I have been looking forward to it too. I hope we have a nice conversation today.
Yes. Now, I know that you're quiet and retiring, and it's going to be difficult to get you to come out and give your opinion on things.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
But just to give a bit of background, I was really interested to see that you've been CEO of 3 ad agencies. So you know a thing or two about advertising and marketing.
I ought to by now. Yeah.
Yes. Talk a little bit about how you started in this area, and then let's talk about what you're doing now.
Sure. Well, I started actually as a teacher. I was a science teacher for a few years, and I was the world's worst teacher. I was terrible. And I got fed up with teaching, and they got fed up with me, and I decided that I really wanted to be a writer of some sort. And so I was living in New York City at the time, and I got my first writing job for an adult fiction publishing company.
Okay.
You know what that means, right? Dirty books. So
I knew you'd have a colourful background. I didn't think it'd be quite as colourful in that regard.
So this company was in Greenwich Village in New York, and it was on top of a gym. And so I went there for my first day of writing, and the assignment was to write a book a week. We had to write a dirty book a week, and it had to be 150 pages. So you had to essentially write 30 pages of smut a day. I can't even type a page a day, 30 pages a day, no less, right? So I did that for one day and I quit. And so that was my one day of being a novelist. Okay? And then I got a job working for the electronics company Panasonic in New York, and working in their advertising department. I did that for a couple of years. Then I moved out to California and got my first agency job as a copywriter, and eventually I became creative director of that agency, and then chief executive of the agency, and we sold the agency to an international company. And then I worked for that company for a couple of years, but I really didn't like working for other people. I'm just not good at that. So I did that and I left. And then I did 3 years of just freelance creative work. And I kind of missed the agency environment. So I went back into, started a new agency with a partner, and that agency did very nicely and grew. And a few years ago, I retired from the agency business. And since then, I have been speaking and writing about advertising. And I've written 5 books, and my 6th book will be published, I'm hoping, next week. So we'll see.
And the title of that book is going to be?
The title of that book is Ad Scam: How Online Advertising Gave Birth to One of History's Greatest Frauds and Became a Threat to Democracy. It's a book about tracking and the dangers of tracking, both to individuals and to democratic societies.
I'm glad you mentioned about copywriting, actually, because a number of years ago, my son asked me one of those big questions, the sort of the questions where you've got to try and come back with something fairly wise, which is, what do you think I should do, Dad? And I said to him, I mentioned a few things, and one of the things I said was, learn to be a good copywriter. I said, because I think that in the future, the best communicators are going to be the people that do very well.
Mm-hmm.
And he went away and I put him on a couple of copywriting courses.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he currently does at the moment. He does
That's great.
copywriting.
Good for you and good for him.
Yeah.
I wish the GDPR over there had been written by copywriters. It would have been one page long and quite understandable instead of the confusing mess that it turned out to be. And but you know what? I always think copywriters are great, so you can't listen to me on this subject, right?
No, I mean, it's
Yeah.
good because I mean, he's in his 20s and it gives
Yeah.
him the opportunity to be able to. He's living in Spain at the moment, but he can
Wow.
travel around the world and have
Hmm.
many different clients. And
Good for him. That's
he,
great.
he's getting really good at that. So,
Good.
a CEO of three different ad agencies. What
Yeah.
was that like?
Well, two of the agencies were independent agencies where I was an owner.
Right.
One of the agencies was a publicly traded agency, international agency.
Okay.
And that was a whole different experience. The agencies in which I was an owner, I enjoyed very much. But you know, I'm a very good team player as long as I'm captain of the team. And and in the agencies where I was an owner, I had a nice time and we did very well. The 2 years I spent working for a publicly traded agency were not my happiest years. Something happened in the agency business somewhere along the line whereby it went from an industry of entrepreneurs and craftsmen to an industry of Wall Street wise guys and sharpies and financial geniuses, and it changed the nature of the business and it changed the culture of the business substantially. And one of the results of that is that right now, I think the advertising agency industry has gotten far less creative than it once was.
Yeah.
And we are far more focused on technology and data and financial results than we are on creating interesting advertising. I think that's a huge mistake, and I think the public recognizes it, and I think the marketing industry recognizes it, but doesn't know what to do about it.
That's it's probably the key quotation that stuck in my mind that actually motivated me to reach out to you to say, come and talk on this podcast. You know, I've been in the software technology sector now for 30 years,
Hmm.
and it's not the most creative when it comes to marketing.
Yeah.
Some of the communication is so boring you'll fall asleep halfway
Yep.
through the first page. It
Yep.
is it's a massive attempt to try and look highly professional and just like everyone else
Yeah.
most of the time.
Uh, yeah, people who don't know how to do advertising well try to create advertising that looks like advertising. That's what
Yes, that's
does
true.
this like an ad? Yeah, it does. Oh, that's great. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's not what there's a big difference. You know, let's go back to first principles for a second.
Yeah.
When you're in business school or you're studying business in any way, you are taught that the most valuable thing that you have is the ability to use logic to solve a problem.
Yes.
And the people who are very successful in business are people who are logical, who can look at a problem and here's the problem, here's the solution, let's do this. Brilliant, we're solved, great. Those people do very well. Advertising does, sadly, that skill does not work in
No.
advertising. An ad is not a court case. You don't go in and make your argument and your competitor makes his or her argument and the best argument wins. Sadly, it would be lovely if it worked that way
Yes.
because it would make things so much easier, but it doesn't work that way. It works in ways that are mysterious and it works in ways that are hard to comprehend, particularly for people who are used to solving problems logically.
Yeah.
They look at someone brings them an ad or the storyboard for a commercial, and they look at it and say, okay, the problem is this, and this is saying that, therefore it solves the problem, therefore it's good. Sadly, it doesn't work that way. And it makes it very hard for business people to be any good at making advertising decisions. And so what business people need, what if I was the CEO of a corporation, what I would want is someone who has worked in advertising for a while and has been successful, that I can trust, that this person tells me this is more likely to work than that. This is probably a better idea than that. Now, in marketing and in advertising, there's no absolutes. There's no black and white.
No.
There's no always and never. There's just likelihoods and probabilities. And this is more likely to be successful than that is, or less likely to be successful. And it, once again, very hard for business people to accept that. They want facts and they want them now.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. It is, and
yeah,
it particularly in the software sector where they deal in zeros and ones
right.
and
And
numbers.
yeah,
You know,
it's very hard for them to understand that all I can tell you, look, I've done ads for 40 years, and I can't tell you for sure that this ad's going to work. All I
no,
can tell you is it has a better chance of working than that ad does. Very difficult for people who are used to logical answers to comprehend that.
I think sometimes the a lot of the content marketing, which is what this industry seems to want to
Yeah,
do, this education thing,
yeah,
it's it seems to be that the technology analysts are taking over the marketing. They're
yeah,
being quoted so often, and
yeah,
they're all using the same Deloitte's and Evergreen and Gartner.
yeah,
I'm so sick of seeing Gartner. You know,
yeah,
they do a job, but
yeah.
when it's repeated over and over again, and then at the same time they'll be saying to me, "Yeah, I get marketing." I think, wow, it's about
Yeah.
differentiation.
No.
They're all saying the same thing.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
and they all have glib answers, but they're not really creative people.
no,
And there's this lovely idea in the world these days that we're all creative and great ideas can come from anywhere and anyone. And that's such bullshit. There are just some people who are very creative. You know,
yeah,
Walt Disney was very creative, and some people have talent and some people don't. And you have to, if you're going to be good in any creative field, you have to be able to identify people with talent and let them do what they do. And the sad part of the advertising business these days is that we have forgotten that. If you look at companies, let's take Disney, for example, or let's take Netflix, or let's take HBO. Those people spend so much money and create so many brilliantly creative things, and they will pay big money for talented people. They don't mind.
yeah,
The advertising agency has gone the other way. We want, we're throwing away the really good talented people, the people with some experience under their belt who've done good things, and instead we're hiring junior people who don't really know what they're doing, but they're less expensive, and they're good casting. The client say, oh, here's a hip young guy. Oh, we
yeah,
want, yeah, yeah. The fact that the person has no talent doesn't really matter that much. They're good casting, and they can sound creative.
yes,
Um, but one of the saddest parts of the advertising business is that we have, while the really good creative companies are doing whatever they can, they're in bidding wars to attract good talent to their platforms. We're the other way. We're throwing them away. We're throwing the really good talented people away in favor of efficiency.
yeah. I mean, I'd like to talk to you about some of the marketing successes that you've seen in your career because I know, and I was very lucky actually. So it got me switched on to this,
Mhm.
that marketing can be so important and can create success.
Yeah.
There are no guarantees,
No.
but it can be done. And I had
Yeah.
an experience many, many years ago when I was just starting to, I was wanting to be an entrepreneur, and I actually developed a belt for athletes, a flotation belt.
Mhm.
And I put an advert into a running magazine, and I got some fairly good responses. And then I woke up one day and I had this crazy idea, and I wrote a poem about a frog that injured its legs, and it had a wish, and it got a belt, and it was unable to run in water, and it was bonkers, absolute bonkers. And I thought, I want to try this, and I ran the ad with an image of the belt, and checks did not stop coming through my letterbox.
There you go.
And it absolutely changed things
Yeah.
around, and I took
Yeah.
that and turned it into another type of business
Yeah.
in training fitness people. And I've
Yeah.
seen the fantastic successes that can come
Yeah.
through being creative and different.
Yeah.
What have you seen in your career? Because you've had a much
I
longer career and seen more than me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. The marketing and advertising are very key elements to success. One thing we have to be careful about is an equivalency between marketing and advertising. Advertising is just one small area of marketing.
Yeah.
Advertising is the communication part of marketing.
Yes.
Marketing has many other parts to it: pricing, distribution,
Yeah.
financial, new product, all kinds of things fall under the umbrella of marketing. And as you know, your friend Mark Ritson says, I think he says the communication part, the advertising part, is like 8 or 10% of marketing.
Yes.
Marketing is a whole lot of other things that you have to know about. I am I'm an advertising guy. I'm not really a marketing guy. I don't know anything about finance, distribution, you know, all public relations, all the other things that are part of marketing. My experience is specifically to advertising.
Yeah. Good
Um,
point.
a- and so you know, we all know about great advertising campaigns that have done so much to build brands. And you know, one of the problems that the advertising industry is facing today, and the marketing industry, is short-termism. Everyone wants to see success this week.
Yes.
And if you look at all the major brands in the world, what they have done is built success over time. It's not about this week. It's not about how many clicks did I get today? That doesn't build major brands. If you look at them, there are basically two, let's call them genealogies of advertising, two lineages of advertising. There's the brand lineage of advertising, which is the advertising we're used to seeing for Nike and Coca-Cola and Apple. And then there's the direct response lineage, which used to be cut this coupon, dial this 800 number, and now it's click here now, right?
Yes.
And the brand building lineage is about long-term success. The direct response lineage is about uh, responses this week. And if you think about all the great brands in the world, if you think about the Toyotas and the McDonald's and the Nikes and the Apples, none of them were built by the direct response. Click here this week, dial this 800 number. None of them. They were
Mm,
all built by the brand lineage of advertising, the kind of advertising that we all enjoy and admire. The
mm,
problem is we have now, because of online advertising, we never knew if online advertising would focus on the brand lineage or on the direct response, and it is way over on the direct response lineage. It's on the click here now, and as a result, a lot of what we think builds brands is not in favor these days. What's in favor and what marketing people are incentivized to produce is quick results now.
Mm.
And they want metrics that they can take to their CEO or to their board or to their ownership and say, look how many clicks we got this week. Look at our KPIs for this week. And they are not incentivized for long-term brand growth. What they, they want to hang on to their jobs. The average
That's
chief marketing officer lasts about 24 months these days.
yes,
And it takes more than 24 months of brand style advertising to really get the satellite into orbit.
yes,
And they're incentivized. They want to keep their job by showing. So there's a disconnect between the incentives to build a powerful, strong brand and the incentives to hang on to your job if you're a chief marketing officer. There's a conflict there, and sadly, that is part of the problem that the advertising industry is facing. It Short-term click here now advertising does not build brands, but it builds careers, right?
yes, sure.
and and uh and there's that problem. Yeah.
So, so for instance, a
Yeah.
software company
Hmm.
that's not a giant, it's
Yeah.
looking to find customers.
Yes.
Is it possible for them to mix those two types of advertising?
Yes, every brand has to. Every brand has short-term and long-term goals. And there's no magic formula between long-term and short-term goals. And there's no magic formula about how much of the direct response type of advertising you do and how much of the brand type of advertising you do. Although there is some research that says, in general, 60% brand, 40% click here now,
Yes,
advertising. I am not, I have a hard time believing that those kind of hard and fast rules apply.
yes,
So, but that's what the industry in general tends to believe. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a software company or any kind of company, the most important factor that advertising produces for you is fame. If you are famous, you have such an incredible advantage over your competitors who are not famous.
yes.
The most important thing that advertising does for a company is to create fame. And
Mm,
that's what, if I were, if you're asking me if I ran a software company or if I did the advertising for a software company, what would it be about? It would be about creating fame in the best way possible. The most amount of fame for the least amount of money. That's what I would be after in my advertising. And to a large extent, fame has to do with two things: reach, how many people see what you're doing, and second, creativity, how much impact what you're doing has on individuals.
being memorable in some way.
Being memorable in some
Yeah.
way, that's fame. It's
I've
another
seen,
definition of fame.
I think that's really interesting what you say. I can think of several software companies that have become famous, and it's not necessarily because of the quality of their software.
Exactly.
But off
And
the back of that, they sold a
yeah,
lot of software.
Yeah, and it's not there's no guarantee. If
No,
you're famous, there's no guarantee you're going to be successful,
sure.
but there's a lot more likelihood that you'll be successful if you're famous. There's a lot more probability of success if you're famous. That seems to be that seems to have been forgotten or ignored. But marketing people and advertising people, they can complicate the shit out of anything.
Yes.
Right?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and fame is just too simple for them to say, our objective is to make you famous. That's too simple. They need, quantified this and graphs and all kinds of shit to confuse the hell out of their clients so they can sell them something.
I get approached because I'm in the software sector.
Yeah,
I'm on LinkedIn,
yeah,
and because I do this podcast,
yeah,
I'm approached, no exaggeration, 50 times a week
yeah,
by experts
yeah,
who can guarantee you um, various result marketing by
yeah,
people in their 20s who
yeah.
look to me like they're living in at home in their and have a business out of their
Right.
bedroom, and
Yeah, yeah.
they want to come into this industry to tell
Mhm.
people how this success formula that they've got,
Yeah.
and they're just regurgitating the last YouTube video that they've seen.
Right, they're clowns and
Yeah,
they're fakers and they're full of shit. But you know what? There are enough people who believe that. There are enough suckers in the world that
yeah,
they're probably making a living with their con game. But the smart people, I don't think get fooled by that. I
no,
hope not. I hope that smart people understand that. Advertising is not that complicated. I mean, we try to make ourselves very valuable by complicating it as much as we can so that the clients need experts like us
well,
to tell them how to do it. Yeah,
let me hold this up. So this is
yeah,
something else that I liked and really
yeah,
attracted to me to you
yeah,
is you wrote a book, no
yeah,
fluff. Look at how small that is.
yeah,
You put in there what you wanted to say, and there's no
yeah.
bullshit in there.
Yeah, that's what I try to do.
Yeah,
I write small books. My
yeah.
next book that's coming out within the next 10 days or something is like that. It's under 100 pages because I found personally when I read business books, there's about 30% of it that's worthwhile and 70% of it that's filler bullshit,
Oh,
blah blah blah,
couple of good
useless.
ideas that they've stretched out
Right.
to make a book.
Exactly,
Could have been an
exactly.
article.
It could have been an article. So
Yeah.
what I say is I write 30% of a book and you can take the other 70% of your time and have a cocktail or bake some cupcakes or something. Yeah. Yeah.
What motivates you now? I can see you having
What
fun with
motivate?
what you're doing.
Yeah, I do. There are two things that motivate me. First, most important to me, is the dangers that the advertising industry has placed on society through tracking. I'm very determined to speak out about the dangers of tracking. And I don't want to get into a whole thing with you here today. I'm sure your listeners don't want to hear me go off on that. The second thing that motivates me is I think there's too much arrogance in the marketing and advertising industry. And I think we need subversive voices in the
Yes,
advertising and marketing and
we do.
who are willing to challenge the experts, who are willing to undermine the aristocrats. And that's what I try to do. I know that there are a lot, when I worked in advertising in the agency business, I know there were a lot of people like me who looked at what was going on and said to themselves, what am I allowed to use four-letter words, Mark?
Go for it.
Okay. And they look around and say, what the fuck are these people doing? They're crazy. But they couldn't say that out loud because they'd get fired. They
Yes,
couldn't question the
yes.
brilliance of the experts. And so I try to be, if I can, a voice for those people who I know are questioning what's going on, but who can't speak out because they have a family, they have a mortgage, they have expenses, they have a car, and
Yes.
they can't afford to get fired by being an obnoxious loudmouth. I can. I don't care. I I don't care who hates me. No one can fire me because I don't have a job. So I try to be the voice of the disenfranchised advertising person who doesn't understand why our industry is so screwed up.
Yeah, that's what came across to me in reading your books and seeing your talks was you're now freed. You can go out and say what you've always wanted to say, and you're
Yes.
going to do it.
Yeah, there's tremendous freedom in being
Yes,
unemployed. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I think I also sort of the title that I think that you have, the ad contrarian. That I mean that was a clue, wasn't it? The
Yeah,
contrarian.
that's the title of my blog. It started as a blog called Ad Contrarian Blog, and then it morphed into a newsletter, which I send out pretty much every Sunday,
Ah,
except when
okay.
I'm not feeling like sending it out. But
Fair enough.
that newsletter is quite successful. I have like over 11,000 people who
Fantastic.
subscribe to it every week, and it does quite well. Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice sometimes to have a voice, isn't it? I mean, I wrote a blog for a long time, and then it sort of morphed into this. But it gives me
Yeah.
the opportunity to just reach out to interesting people, uh,
Yeah.
and and you're on that list now.
Thank you. I
It's
appreciate that.
it's been you were as I expected you would be, which was actually a very good thing. So
Great.
I've very much enjoyed it. What if you were to advise? Because you know my audience,
Yeah.
it's software entrepreneurs. It could be
Yeah.
CEOs of large software companies, medium, or they may be just starting out.
Right.
And when we're talking about advertising,
Yeah.
and if you were in their shoes and you were advising them, what
Yeah.
would be the advice that you would give them?
Okay. If I'm not going to give them marketing advice because I'm not a
No,
marketing expert, but I am going to give them advertising advice.
sure.
Find the most creative agency or person you can find and let them trust them to do your advertising. And if they fail, fire them and find someone else who's very creative. But don't allow mediocrity into your advertising. A good creative advertising is worth 10. One good creative ad is worth 10 mediocre ads. Don't try to do advertising that looks like it belongs in your category, that looks like it's advertising for your kind of product. Do advertising that if you were one of your customers, you would look at and say, "Oh, that's good. I like that. That makes me feel good. That's beautiful, or that's interesting, or that kind of a." And the second thing I'd say is reach everyone you can in your category. You think you know who your clients are going to be, but you don't. And the more people you can reach in your category, once again, it's all about likelihoods and probabilities. The more people that you can reach in your category, the more likely you are to get customers.
Fantastic advice. I love the conversation today. We're
Good.
very much aligned. I mean, I ended up in mergers and acquisitions, which I've done for a lot of my career, but I started out going to an art school. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a bit crazy. Most of the
Yep.
guys come from accountancy backgrounds, but
Yep.
fortunately, I'd had the opportunity to get a bit creative on the outsmart side.
Hmm.
So I understand what you're saying, and I think it's been great to have you on the podcast today.
Thank
If
you.
somebody wants to reach out to you and they want
Yeah.
to read your blog, what's the best way of getting hold of you?
It's Bob Hoffman's website.com.
That's easy to remember.
Okay. Bob Hoffman's website.com is my website. And through there, you can contact me. And I'm happy to talk with anyone about anything.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's a pleasure talking with you today. Good luck with your podcast and good luck with your business.
Thank you very much. It's been great having you on. As always, if you've got any points, if you'd like any subjects for me to cover, just reach out to me. If you've liked what you've heard today, then let me know. And if you haven't, let me know as well. Until next time.